Hello PS81 students. Today we're going to talk about fractions. We're going to use a model to compare fractions. We're also going to use a model to show equivalent fractions. And lastly, we are going to rewrite fractions so that they have a common denominator. Let's compare some fractions. Remember, we're going to use a model. So here I have set up two models. Two rectangles that are exactly the same size. The problem is, Maria and Rosa both had candy bars. One candy bar, two candy bars. Maria ate 1/2 of her candy bar. Rosa ate 2/3 of the candy bar. Who had the most? Let's look. I got my whole candy bar, cut it in half, and I'm going to shade in 1/2, which is what Maria ate. Then Rosa ate 1, 2/3, 2 out of 3. Our question is, who ate more? If we look, Rosa's shaded area is much shorter. Rosa's shaded area is longer than Maria's. So Rosa ate the most. So 2/3 is more than 1/2. Now that you know how to compare the fractions using a model, I want you to work on this problem. Ted walked 2/3 of a mile to the baseball game. Then he walked 1/5 of a mile home. Which distance is shorter? How do you know? Do a model on your own. Tell me which distance is shorter. Write the distance here, whether it's 2/3 or 1/5, and tell me, how did you get that? Why do you know? For the second part of this lesson, we're going to use models to find out if fractions are equivalent.
Has 3/6 yards of ribbon, and Isabel has 5/8 yards of ribbon. How can you determine whether Savannah and Isabel have the same length of ribbon? We can use models to compare the lengths of ribbons that Savannah and Isabel each have. Here's a model that represents 1 yard of ribbon divided into 6 equal pieces. Savannah has 3/6 yard of ribbon, or 3 of the 6 pieces of the model. Now, let's compare Isabel's ribbon to Savannah's. Use a model that shows 1 yard of ribbon divided into 8 equal pieces instead of 6. Isabel has 5/8 of a yard, or 5 of the 8 pieces of the model. Compare the models. The shaded sections are not the same size. Isabel's piece is longer than Savannah's. 3/6 and 5/8 are not equivalent fractions. This means that Savannah and Isabel do not have the same length of ribbon.
So now, let's try to tell whether fractions are equivalent. And we're going to be using the equal sign if the fractions are equivalent, and the not equal sign if they are not. So, we have 1/6 or 2/12. If we look, 1/6 and 2/12 are the same size. So, I'll give you 2 seconds to see which sign you're going to use. 1001, 1002. These two fractions are equal. If you said equal, give yourself a pat on the back. Let's look at the next fraction. Let's make our bar. 2/5 1, 2. And 6/10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 2/10. 6, 2/5, 6/10. 6/10 is longer, so 6/10 is bigger. Ooh, we weren't using bigger than or smaller than. Today, we're going to use equal or not equal. These are not equal. Not equal. Last one we're going to do, let's change it a little since we had enough of these bars, or I had enough of them. Let's make circles. 5/8. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5/8. And 2/4. 1, and 2. This may be a little harder to see, but we can see that straight down is at 2/4. Straight down here, we still have a little bit more. So 5/8 and 2/4 are not equal. Not equal. Next, we're going to give you a little problem to do at home. So here's our problem. Remember, give me the answer on the bottom. Any other little comment you might have, you could write in too. If you have a problem with solving this, please leave me a little note. Here's our problem. Selvin uses 3/5 size strips to model 3/5. He wants to use 1/10 size pieces to model an equivalent fraction. How many 1/10 size strips will he need?
Go.
So we're getting to the last part of today's lesson. We've already used the model to compare fractions and find out whether it's larger than, smaller than, or equal to. We also use the model to find out whether fractions are equal or not equal. Now we're going to find common denominators so that we can rewrite fractions so that they both have the same denominator.
Go.
So let's find the common denominator so that we can rewrite the fraction. Let's find the common denominator so that we rewrite the fraction. That was a hard thing to say. Now, we have 3/4 and 1/6. First thing we got to do is find the multiples of 4 and of 6. So multiples of 4, we start with 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. I like to do at least 5. If you don't find the common multiple before 5, you'll just keep going. Let's do 6. Oops. 12. Ooh, I can already see one, but I'll do the next couple. 18, 24, 30. as I said, as I was writing, right away I saw that we have a 12 here and a 12 here. And there is no number below that that is the same or common. So, our common denominator is 12. Step 2 is to now change the fractions to have a 12 as the denominator. 3/4. And I want to multiply it times a number that's going to give me 12 as a denominator. So what number times 4 is going to give you 12? 1, 2, 3. 3. 3 times 4 is 12. You do it to the bottom, you got to do it to the top. 3 times 3 is 9. So 3/4 can be written as 9/12. Now, the second fraction, 1/6. What do I multiply that to get a denominator of 12 on the bottom? What times 12, what times 6 gives me 12? 1, 2. So 2 times 6 equals 12. 2 times 1 equals 2. So 1/6 can be written as 2/12. Let's do a little practice. We got another 2 examples here. Remember, step 1, let's find the multiples. Find the multiples of 6. Ooh, there it is. Bingo. 18 is the common multiple. So now, step number 2, we rewrite the fractions with the common multiple. So let's look at 1/6. 1/6. What number do I multiply it times to get 18 as a denominator? 1, 2, 3. 3 times. So I do it to the bottom, got to do it to the top. 3 times 6 is 18. 3 times 1 is 3. So 1/6, where am I going to put this? 1/6 can be rewritten as 3/18. Let's look at 1/9. What number do I multiply it by? So I get a fraction with a denominator of 18. 1, 2. 2 times 9 is 18. 2 times 1 is 2. So 1/9 could be rewritten as 2/18. They both have the same common denominator. Later on, you're going to find out that we cannot add fractions if they do not have the same denominator. You can't add them and you can't subtract them. So later on, we're going to use this to add and subtract fractions.
Go.
We've come to the end of the lesson. Just one more thing for you to do. Solve the problem, post your answer. Ella spends 2/3 hour practicing the piano each day. She also spends a half an hour jogging. What is the least common denominator of the fractions? Give me that over here. Then rewrite the fractions with the common denominator.